Hey, and welcome to the Coming Strength and Fitness Fitcast. I'm Jill, coach and owner of CSNF, and I'm here along with my team to take your fitness experience to a new level. In each episode, we'll bring you helpful conversations with our coaches, members, and guests to provide additional value to your gym experience and understanding to our mission at CSNF to change lives through fitness. Hope you enjoy the episode.
Alrighty, guys, we're back with another episode on the CSNF Fitcast. I hope you're doing well. It's your host, Alex. I apologize. You have to hear me on every single episode. Maybe we'll get a new host in here. In the studio, usually I'm accompanied by Jill. She's here, but not really here. Hi, Jill. But we are spotlighting two of our very own coaches today. One, Coach Layton. How are you, buddy?
Good. How are you, man?
Great. And number two, owner and coach, Hunter Thornton.
Hey guys, how are y'all today?
Guys,
pretty good.
And Joe, you can also yell this in the background too. What was the last thing you've eaten today?
Frozen blueberries.
Frozen blueberries for Coach Layton.
Do you want like the actual last bite or like food I ate?
Actual last bite that you consumed.
Egg whites with
jelly on it. Interesting, Jill. A protein bar. Mine was barbecue chicken with green beans. I just shoveled in my mouth about 30 minutes ago. That has little relevancy of what we're going to talk about today, I guess food-wise-ish. Mm-hmm. We wanted to get Layton and Hunter in the studio today and just talk about their specific part of their story in regards to their gut health, because you guys have very unique situations when it comes to your gut. Probably just atypical, not your average experience when it comes to digestion, food, what you guys have done all throughout that. And I think that's interesting because that plays a part in our health and fitness. And maybe I've talked to many people at the gym that have some sort of intolerance issue, something they're learning, gluten, blah, 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 all that stuff. So I'm a big fan of listening to other people's stories so I can learn through that. So that's what we're going to do. And it's awesome because you guys are our coaches and you're already here. Who wants to go first? We're going to arm wrestle for it. Layton, dang. Layton just pinned Hunter in less than a second. Just kidding. Layton, why don't you go ahead and just give us like the 3 to 5 minute gut health version of your story?
Okay, yeah. No, honestly, I was thinking about going first anyways because mine's definitely a lot more recent. And overall, I would probably say a lot less extreme than what I know of Hunter's. But so yeah, it's been about 2 or 2.5 years now since it really became a thing. So about 2.5 years ago, I started, and I should probably preface it with this. I have done a vegan diet like off and on for a year plus a couple times in my life, literally a couple, like twice. So that is just to start off, like there's that, which is definitely an abnormal diet, I would say, sticking to one type of food being plants. I was eating a lot of fiber, and most of my protein would have to come from high fiber, higher carb sources, and at least over the last year of my experience kind of going head first into gut health and stuff, realizing that it was pretty much eating all the number one things that are known to irritate gut health and gut lining.
Like what were some of those?
Beans, lots and lots of beans, like garbanzo beans, like chickpeas is another word for them, but black beans, pinto beans.
Those irritate
sprouts.
your gut?
It's been shown that they can. They have chemical in them called lectins, like just natural chemical found in plants, lectins. One of the reasons why you tend to find beans like cooked or like stewed in fat, like refried beans, is just, again, because it generally helps those chemicals get cooked down and kind of cooked out and just kind of lowering the level of those types of things like in it. So it makes it a little bit more palatable for your gut.
Interesting.
But so yeah, I was eating a lot of that, a lot of tempeh, a lot of soy, other things that have been known to have irritations in the gut lining and whatnot. But
so then you started experiencing some symptoms.
Yes, about 2.5 years ago, yeah, it just got real where it was just like ridiculous cramps. Like I got like bloating to the point where I looked like legit pregnant, except my family would make fun of me. I looked like a Ninja Turtle because my gut would like protrude, but I would have the abdominal muscle still showing. And they're like, "Are you okay? Like your gut is gigantic."
Oh, wow.
And I would be just in really bad pain. And then it just got to where instead of having that maybe once a week, it became like every other day.
Dang.
And that happened over the course of a year where it just became that frequent. And then eventually, my girlfriend at the time who had IBS was like, "Hey, have you ever gotten checked for IBS?" And I said, "No, what's that?"
Right.
And she told me it's like irritable bowel syndrome. It's just basically your intestines don't work the right way. And then, long story short, I'm really stubborn and I don't go to the doctor for a really long time. And then I have like a crazy attack, I guess you could say. This February was like the last straw where I was finally like, okay, I'm not going to just talk to my doctor about it. I'm actually going to go seek out a GI. So I went to the emergency room in February because I thought I was having a kidney stone, but then later found out that it was just my intestines wigging out.
You were out of town.
Yes, I called Hunter. Because I know that he's had the unfortunate experience of having to deal with like his issue and his journey and whatnot. So I was like, maybe Hunter knows what the deal is. So I called him and Jill, I think, that day, and I was delirious. I had almost passed out a few times. But anyways, after that, I've now kind of for the last 5 months really gotten it in check.
Yeah.
It's involved me having to go away from veganism and stuff like that and just figure stuff out on my own. But it's gotten a lot better. But I still have my issues. But that's short as.
Layton, you did an excellent job at condensing that story.
Thank you.
Because I know you are one with words and you never lack words, and you did awesome.
Thank you.
For anyone who doesn't know Layton or doesn't know this side of Layton has a very, very, very high pain tolerance. Like, you can suffer in a workout, but you also, like you said, you won't go to the doctor until, like, your arm's falling off or there's a severe issue. So when Layton went out of town, the 1 or 2 times of the year that he, like, actually takes to himself and leaves, I hear that he's in the emergency room. And I was like, okay, if Layton's in the emergency room, he has to be, like, near death because it takes a lot for him to go. So Layton, I'm glad that we're not there anymore. I'm glad that you've found some healing. And we're going to get into like some things you've learned and stuff like that. Let's kick it over to Hunter as he has a little bit longer story of it. Hunter, take it away.
Sure. So mine's, obviously I'm a little more tenured in life than Layton. From, what's that?
Context, Layton's in his 20s and Hunter's almost 40s?
I'm
close.
Barely in my 40s.
Barely in the 40s. So
like centimetered into.
Centimeters. Anyways.
But I'll comment on Layton's. It's interesting. One of the things I found out through my journey is that actually travel, specifically air travel, is a big deal for tipping like your gut health. But I'll circle back to that.
Interesting.
So anyways, my journey is started really back, I think, before college, high school. And I played competitive soccer, was fortunate to do that. So after soccer games, I get really bad cramps. Like my dad would drive me home from a tournament, and I'd have gut cramps. Didn't know what it was. I always just thought it was like exertion. Soccer playing, you're running 8 to 10 miles at a time in a game and things like that. So I just never put anything to it. I was 14, 15, 16 years old. But they would spur up every so often. So fast forwarding all of that to college, things were great, fine. I kind of played with my diet in college, not knowing anything was going on, but, like more of a vegetarianish diet for a little while and things like that, just kind of figuring out and trying different things. But it was interesting. My senior year, I was fortunate to play college soccer there as well, all 4 years in college. We finished the season through playoffs and all that stuff, had a lot of successes there. And literally like 2 months after my final year in college, I started having really bad, consistently gut issues. Didn't know what it was. We don't have to go into the whole details of it. But anyways, eventually saw a doctor because I was having so much pain. They didn't know exactly what it was, so obviously did some blood work, all that fun stuff that came up, and they said, hey, I think you may have Crohn's. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. What is that? And basically it's an autoimmune disease for the folks that don't know about Crohn's, which for lack of better terms is basically your immune system is attacking itself, or your body rather, so it creates a ton of inflammation because it doesn't understand what's going on really in your body. So it's like having a virus inside your body and it's fighting it, but it's actually not like a virus itself. So went through all of that. And Jill and I jokingly say I gave her Crohn's as her wedding present because we got married right after college. When we were finding out the diagnosis, we moved off to, I was actually going to do grad school and having to figure all that stuff out. So the discovery phase of, okay, this is what you have, but how do you actually manage it? Probably was about a 3-year journey, 2 to 3 year journey.
Wow.
We ended up having to come back from grad school just because it was too much for Jill and me going. I couldn't work consistently while we were trying to figure it out just because I was having episodes. I'd be in the hospital like every couple weeks because more essentially my gut was flaming up. My intestines were flaming up. I was trying to eat. And when I ate, it just inflamed it more. And they call it basically like a leaky gut. Basically, the lining of your intestines is so inflamed. And the way your intestines are supposed to work is they absorb all the nutrients, but it wouldn't absorb. So it just kind of got pushed through. So I was losing weight while trying to eat, but at the same time creating more inflammation. And because of the inflammation was swelling, it was causing blockages in my intestines. So it was just basically this vicious cycle. Ended up going to the Mayo Clinic, which if you're not familiar with it, it's kind of like a research for like cancer and other things too. But my dad was somebody and was able to get a guy down in Jacksonville. So my dad took Jill and I and Mackenzie. Yeah, so we had Mackenzie, our daughter, like 1 year old, like lugging her around, going to the doctor for like a week. The way they do it is you go show up, they interview you, do blood work, come back, interview you more. And it's basically like you don't go there to see a doctor, you go there for a week.
Wow.
So it was interesting. Anyways, got all that somewhat under control. I'll expedite the story a little bit more. Still struggled, not say struggle, but like went through episodes of it. Ended up having 2 surgeries. One of the surgeries they took out about, I think it was like 15 feet of my small intestine.
Wow.
Part of it is my ileum, which I learned a lot about my body. Ileum is what absorbs your B12 vitamin. So I don't have all of my ileum, so I'm all B12 deficient. I think about how do I go through supplementation and stuff like that. I attribute to that was why I'm so mellow. But I don't think Jill always agrees with that. So anyways, that was kind of what happened to me. My journey as far as like learning was pretty dramatic in the sense that, doctors won't treat typically with medicine because that's what they go to school for. How do we handle this? And I'm certainly for it. But I also wanted to see, like, how do I control what's going into my body? Because clearly the food I'm putting in is also irritating it. So
Right.
From a journey perspective, we did Maker's Diet, which...
What was it called? Makers?
The Maker's Diet.
I've never heard of that.
It's a guy named Jordan Rubin. He kind of came out of like a church evangelical perspective and said, hey, the concept of it was eat what God made. Dirt, veggie, things that grow out of the ground. Eat
Did you just
meats,
say dirt?
like things that grow out of the dirt.
Oh, eat dirt. It'll heal you.
No, actually,
Sorry.
well, and some of his argument, and I won't go down the rabbit hole, is that like because all of our food now is so sanitized through how we transport and everything like that, you're missing tons of vitamins. And he actually was a proponent of like you should think of probiotics as a way of getting back to how food was supposed to consume.
Interesting.
Because the food is no longer it grew out of the dirt, but they sanitized it and killed off all of the nutrients that were surrounding it when it grew in the dirt.
Yeah.
So you're not getting the benefits of that food. So we learned a ton. Basically, the Maker's Diet, for people that don't want to go back and read it, but it's basically paleo. You're eating meats, veggies, fruits, no refined sugars, and such was where we started from, and then we evolved from there. But that's the high level, 5 minutes.
What's it like now?
So I still take some medication just to manage it. The medicine I take kind of like suppresses my immune system because it is an autoimmune to kind of balance out when it does get flamed up. I eat probably 80%, I would almost say 80-90% paleo.
Yeah.
The only thing I eat outside of that is like a little bit of cream in my coffee, sometimes a lot of cream, but a little bit of cream in my coffee, and then we'll do some like dessert stuff, like cereal or something like that, with dairy with some stuff like that. So it's still very much in line with that, and I can now tell just from like when I'm getting them and stuff, some of the triggers for me were early days, obviously food and gut health, stress in general. So if I'm not getting 8 hours of sleep consistently, need to, but if I'm not getting 8 hours of sleep, like that's a trigger for me. And also travel, like ecosystem environment. It sounds kind of fluffy, but what I learned too earlier in my career was I was doing like a lot of national sales. So like when I would travel and like go from East Coast to like San Diego, just your body is in a different ecosystem, and your immune system is greatly more impacted than you would think. Like if you travel through the airport, like just the whole environment of different people, different things, tons of germs, environment. I wasn't getting sick from that. It was just taxing my immune system. And so I learned like managing that to less frequent types of travel was healthier.
Layton, what's your reaction to hearing Hunter's story?
It's a lot of parallels, but I mean, ultimately, it's just from what I know in my shorter journey, substantially shorter, I was told by my GI, like, thankfully, I'm pretty sure you don't have Crohn's, which is really good for you. And then I said, oh, okay, that's a relief, because my aunt has Crohn's, but hers I don't even think is extreme as Hunter's has been. So I would say upon hearing that, I noticed some parallels, but at the same time, I'm like very grateful that I don't have to, because ultimately, like the IBS, as far as my knowledge is concerned, it's pretty manageable just with like lifestyle. Although I was given the option, I have a medication that I was given, but it's just like, it's one of those like break in case of emergency deals. Basically, if like my stomach really if I'm like losing it, like I want to go to the hospital, I can take one of them and it just relaxes my guts.
So that was your exact diagnosis. You were diagnosed, Layton, with IBS.
Yes, IBS-C, which is just that the C stands for constipation. That's the way that mine manifests. Apparently, there's ones where it makes you vomit a lot, which, I mean, I'm very glad I don't have that.
Because if you don't know Layton, that's his like biggest, like, what is it, phobia or aversion or irrational fear that...
All of those things.
Yes.
Yes, 100%. Don't do those.
And then, I don't want this to sound hard, Hunter, or harsh. Is it just Crohn's, or it's just primarily Crohn's?
Yeah, so the way it, I guess, manifests, because I really don't know a ton that have Crohn's that I've talked to, like, how does this? For me, when I flare up, it does two things, very similar to Layton. Like, I just get a lot of gas buildup, because what happens is my intestines expand. And when you think of expansion of intestines, it obviously expands outward, but the inside liner also expands and fills up, so therefore food can't get through. And so when I have what I would call a flare-up, like, medication will not stop it. I have to go to the ER, and they have to put me on high pain narcotics to basically calm my system down. And usually I have to get it. A lot of times I have to get it 48 hours to monitor it. And the biggest concern is that as those flare-ups have happened over the years, that worst case scenario, it could be what they call a stricture, which basically it swells up so much that it won't like come back down, and they have to go in and cut out that section of the intestines before and stitch it back together.
Wow.
The absolute worst case is if they did that another time, or the bag on that. The body won't have enough to
digest. Small things.
Yeah.
So I literally just had something and it just zoomed right out of my head. Hunter, what was the age of when you said you first started experiencing symptoms?
Typically, from a Crohn's diagnosis perspective, they usually say anywhere as early as 18 is typically when you see it. I was starting to, I don't know if it was correlated truly, because it was just pain and it would go away in a couple hours.
Oh,
gotcha. I just have to lay down. And honestly, after playing a game, I'd just pull my waistband off my gut just to let it relax. And a couple hours later, it would subside. That was back when I was 14, 16.
Yeah.
But it was interesting. I never really experienced that through college. Resurfaced or different.
Right, afterwards.
Back when
And Layton, how old were you when you started experiencing symptoms?
I was about 2021. And then it went into overdrive right around 22.
Yeah.
Is that common with other findings or statistics? So that's like the common onset age?
Yeah, usually I think 18 is if they give a band range of typical, I think is as low as 18, but on what I've read, is most of it's like that 21 is the typical onset.
Interesting. Okay, this is what I remembered 2 minutes ago. Let's take a minute and just talk about gluten and dairy just in general, because I think what was intended to help clients more like you guys, as far as to have true issues and intolerances and disorders, people realized, and just big companies realized, oh, hey, we can make a lot of money saying, oh, this is healthy, or this is going to cause an inflamed gut or inflammation, so you can't eat gluten, you can't eat dairy. But that's not for everybody. Talk to us about some of like the misconceptions and things that you guys have learned when it comes to those two food groups. Layton, we'll go with you first.
Yeah, for me at least, gluten, I'm getting braver with it. I've noticed that most of the time, if I eat like the last time I had gluten was literally like a couple days ago. I had at Kate's place had some
The pasta
and bread. The thing for me is like nuts and seeds tend to be like like peanuts, man. I tried peanuts again not too long ago, and it was stupid.
It'll wreck you.
Stupid, yeah. Huh. But gluten for me it's hit or miss enough to where I'm scared of it.
Yeah.
Dairy for me is for the most part. I don't know if this has anything to do with it. I feel like it does, at least with my reading into it. But like, I get the bougie dairy, the grass-fed, 100%.
Oh, sure.
And I definitely noticed that pretty much has never given me an issue. And I have had some times where, like, I remember I was telling Hunter, because Hunter's like, dude, gluten and dairy is, like, terrible for me. Like, if he combines the two, he's like, I don't do that ever. And I was like, interesting. I had my aunt's, my uncle's wedding, like, 6 months ago. And he had pizza for his, like, wedding deal. And it was, like, their favorite pizza place in Atlanta. It was delicious. I had 2 slices, and I legit felt like everything with my guts was destroyed, like it normally does, like super bloated. But I also like felt like a very stupid, uncomfortable like feeling all day, and I don't normally have that, so that was really crappy. But overall, I think that for most people, dairy and gluten are both pretty, like, most people don't have enough of the lactase enzyme naturally that their body produces for them to digest dairy. And a lot of times I've done my reading, whereas when people feel like they can tolerate dairy is actually because they have consumed it on such a regular basis that their body, the amazing machine that it is, learns to adapt to it.
Yeah.
Okay, this guy's just going to keep eating dairy. And they also forget a lot of times, people like me and Hunter, I feel like, and you and Jill and everybody here, like, that, you know, works out pretty intensely and has been really dialed in with their nutrition for an extended period of time. You get to know your body to where you know, like, very slight changes. I think most people, I've come to realize, don't really have that as much. And so, like, they're not really quite in tune enough to know, like, oh, maybe going to the bathroom like I have been for like the last couple of years is actually not normal. Or maybe the way that I feel when I go to bed and I get like that little bit of heartburn every night is also not normal, and things like that. So overall, I would say that gluten and dairy for me, like gluten definitely, dairy, again, it's a little bit less miss in terms of the hit or miss, to where like I'm a little bit more comfortable with it, usually with yogurt and stuff, which is probably another reason it helps, is because it's fermented. But anyways, I would say that gluten and dairy, lactose in general, is kind of become very like I'm vigilant about it. Whereas like with meat and fruit and stuff, like I'm pretty chill. Just
yeah,
like, okay,
you're pretty good. Hunter, thoughts, comments?
I would say that what I've learned from my journey, honestly, even just being in fitness, wellness, and conversations a lot with people, is like everybody's body is uniquely, in the sense that what they can tolerate and how they respond to different. So with a gluten-free diet, an example, like Jill and I talk about this all the time. Like I don't prescribe or believe like a nation diet is required and or necessary and or even tested. I think every human will respond to different foods, semic response, all that stuff is. So I'll say that first, and then I can see is that, yeah, Layton said it correct. Like the worst responses I've ever had is eating dairy combined with gluten. Typically, most eat pizza. Just has never worked out well. Will I eat a piece of pizza if my kids are having a pizza? No, sure, I'll have a sliver because it tastes good. But I know how my body will respond to those things. So I think through trial and error, and honestly being realistic with myself, and say, hey, I'll have a scoop of ice cream and understand how that impacts me. Educates and informs my future decisions. So a lot of trial and error, I figured what works. And full disclosure, I eat a bowl of cereal every night, and I understand what cereal types inflame me more than others.
Right.
That helps answer. But
for sure.
I do agree with your initial comment that, the gluten-free fad that came out, when celiac became more prevalent and stuff, marketers are capitalizing on things of that nature, and human buyers gravitated towards some of those things, thinking it's a healthier choice. But honestly, if you look at it from a caloric perspective, gluten-free options are way more processed and way more dense in refined materials than
Yes.
so I think you need to
Yes.
educate yourself on the why first,
Yes.
because food marketers are being paid to market the way they're choosing to market things.
Exactly.
So I think that's why I say it's really an individual choice. Why are you choosing to do that?
Yes.
What is the impact of that choice? Educate yourself for your own choices.
Yes, that's good. And I won't speak for all food marketers, but many of the big brand, big company ones, their sole purpose is to make money, is to hit their numbers. That when you do find quality brands and ones with an intent of, hey, how can I make this healthy? How can I provide the most quality, richest type of food, yogurt, dairy, whatever that is, versus Oreos are gluten free, but we're not making Oreo and vegan, but we're not making Oreos for the quality of an Oreo. You're making it because people like them, they're really good, and it's going to sell a bunch and make money.
Well, Jill and I used to joke around this all the time, especially when we were like, I was on this earlier nutritional diet, was like, oh, it's paleo cookies. And
we're like, it's still a cookie.
Yeah,
It's still a cookie.
and it has like 800 grams of fat because you have oil, you have nut,
sugar, and salt, and all that.
Nuts,
butter, or
almond flour and stuff. So it's like, it's a gut bomb of fat, which means that it doesn't have gluten, but it doesn't mean it's good for you.
Exactly. Exactly. Just educate yourself. All right, guys, we are approaching third base and we're about to hit home. So a couple quick minutes. You guys are doing awesome. Really quick, how has this both affected your personal health and fitness journey? So in regards to your nutrition, your gut health, some of the challenges and things you've had to overcome, how's that impacted you getting fit, you doing competitions, you hitting PRs, staying consistent in the gym? Layton, you go first.
But first thing, Hunter said it, is I very much so value sleep a lot more than I ever have. I can't tell you like the significant difference I feel in my stomach and my guts when I get good sleep versus bad sleep. I mean, it's a game changer. So really putting a premium on sleep, also putting a premium on hydration, but also kind of being aware of like also how much water you get from whole foods like fruit. Big one for fruit. The hydration, like how much water you have and give to your body to allow it to kind of like go into the digested food that you eat will allow for significantly easier time digesting it. So sleep and water, and then if I had to give it's like my 3 points performance in class. If I had to give like a third one, it would be, honestly, and this may be a little bit unpopular, you really just got to go back to the basics of your food. Like really, like just try and cook very simple food and then get to where you find a good spot and then like make little tweaks occasionally and see what kind of sets you off. Just again to have like that controlled variables so that you can see what the manipulated variable is, so that if you do have a different outcome, you can say, okay, well, I've always eaten this, this, and this, and it's always been okay, but yesterday was different, and it's probably because, whatever, I cooked it in a different kind of oil, or I added some different kind of like vegetable that I don't normally eat. So things like that. So just kind of keep it simple with your diet, like 80% of the time, like Hunter says, and then have like the 10% of the time where it's like, if your kids are going to, have cake for their birthday, try it.
Sure.
Don't go crazy. Don't eat like half the cake. For one, that'd be unfair to your kid, but also two, you're going to be asking for it at that point. I would just say water, sleep, and just keep it simple for at least the big majority of the time.
I heard this a while ago and I loved it, that they say decrease the distance you and your food. That when you think about the common foods that we eat now and we prepare, that we don't know where that chicken's coming from or where the field that sweet potato is grown out of. Not to say that that's bad, but like kind of going back to what Hunter said, that in your own ecosystem, in your own community, with those actual nutrients that are coming out of the garden or field, that if you can get it from a local farmer's market or fruit stand or grow it your own, it's only going to benefit you. But really quick, Layton, you haven't seen any like major impact or decrease in performance in the gym because of this? Yes or no?
Volume, yes. Like I've noticed that if I let's say that I'm trying to go toe-to-toe with you for like 2 weeks in a row, where me and you were doing like maybe a few more sessions than we probably ought to at times, or at least too many times for me. If I like start training a lot more with a lot more volume, and I'm also not, replenishing that with the requisite extra sleep and water and stuff like that, and generally it's always asleep. Yes, I do. I definitely have experienced it where it's just like I have no energy, especially the days after I had like the really big flare-ups. I'm sure you can speak to it. Like I'm sore and I'm tired for like a couple days or a few days or so. Like when I got back from Colorado, I just remember it was like for the next few days after that, I was just, my guts were so like it was just like a deep soreness, but I was also tired. So yeah, I've definitely noticed things like that. But ultimately, it's, again, mine being not as extreme as Hunter's. I mean, I'm sure that he's definitely experienced some, but I can just say for my short experience, there are definitely noticeable changes in like just what I can tolerate with regards to like volume and sleep and stuff like that.
Hunter,
What's your question?
has it impacted your health or fitness much at all?
Yeah, I would say, I don't know if my wife would agree with this, but I would say my diagnosis probably catapulted us to probably why we're even sitting here today.
Sure.
Opening a gym, finding that pathway, altering our lives to pursue wellness. Obviously, that's like a terminal diagnosis, but it was a diagnosis of something that I was going to deal with for the rest of my life in some varying capacity. So it absolutely altered my perspective like that, because especially early in the diagnosis, I mean, I was in the hospital to the point where like the doctors were asking Jill, like, is he taking meds? Because he's like here every week.
Oh, wow.
Because we're under control. So we knew it was something that was going to take a pretty big shift in our life to get fixed. So knowing all of that, I would say absolutely has. And for me personally, it just brings, those types of things to more of the forefront of like, how do I adore a quality life?
Right.
And putting guardrails in our lives to men's. I always think it's interesting though, observationally, it's like I wonder sometimes if our kid weird because we don't we don't have Oreos in the house all the time. We do have McLean, but growing up, I was eating those junkies, and it makes me wonder like, did that alter my outcome? Because I'd come home and slam a Mountain Dew and eat a Nutty Bar and go out and play with my buddies and come back in and eat more junk.
Nutty Bar.
Those are my jam. I love those.
Yep.
But anyways, all that to say, it's absolutely 100% affected my approach and learning about scenario, but also like how do I also share what I've learned with other people? Fortunate coming straight to fitness to do some of that in different ways. So I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. So we rounded third. We're on our way to home plate. Last question before we do, a couple fun ones at the end. What piece of encouragement would you give somebody that's in the same boat, or maybe just you yourself right now, but you have to do this in one sentence? Sorry, I'm going to pull an Alex move and make you condense it down to just one sentence. If you don't remember anything else, remember this. Layton, do you have your sentence of encouragement?
I think so. It's from your Holo Health seminar, actually. One of the guest speakers you had.
Lindsay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She said something, and honestly, I think about it all the time now, and that is, you read the nutrition label, meaning like proteins, carbs, and fats, your body reads like the ingredients list.
That stood out to me too. That was big.
Yeah.
I like that.
So like again, if you look at a Twinkie, it's got like a paragraph for an ingredients list, and you also like if you're looking at it, you're like, this.
Right.
Yeah, this doesn't grow anywhere. And kind of like to the maker diet. I mean, again, it's just like, your body does not read. I'm pointing to a can right here that says nutrition facts, calories, carbs, fats. Your body, or you read that, your body reads the ingredients. So again,
water, cane sugar, salt,
exactly,
that kind of stuff.
Yep.
That's good. Hunter.
One sentence. I would say, but I would definitely say you are the only person puts
True that.
colon. So, just the idea that you get to control the outcome of your day in, day out by I'll slash through. You get to control the inputs in, whether that's sleep, water, food, whatever. And because of that, it often was a lot of things. I would just say take control of what you're putting in your body.
I love that. Alrighty, guys, as we are almost done with this, thank you so much for just letting us into that side of your story. I think it's super helpful and intersects with what we do here at the gym. Really quick, probably the hardest question I've ever asked. Layton, what is your favorite color?
Green.
The follow-up question is, and what does that say about you?
I get this all the time. I'm hippy dippy.
Is that why your car's green?
Honestly, yeah. One of the reasons I chose that is because, like, it's like, oh, okay, cool. It's like a natural color, but also too a big one. It looks not as bad when it gets covered in pollen and dirt.
Huh.
So
interesting.
at least I feel like it doesn't.
I like that intention.
Mm-hmm.
Hunter, what's your favorite color?
When I was a kid, it was hunter green.
Obviously.
But I'd probably say
Why? What does that say about you?
chill, like blue, sunny,
Mellow.
blue sky day, bluebird day, or whatever they call it when they're skiing.
Oh yeah.
Jill's over there making funny faces in the background. If you can't hear, I will take your word for it, Hunter.
Cold blue.
If you guys could, speaking of food and gut health, if you could only eat one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be, other than pizza and cake?
Plain. Plain grass-fed yogurt.
Plain grass-fed yogurt.
Mm-hmm.
You could just eat it by the shovelful, couldn't you?
Oh yeah, if you guys like, I came to one of our coaches meetings like eating it, and Jill was like, "Did you finish that?" I'm like, yes, and she's like, "Gains," and I'm like, "Yes." But yeah, no.
What brand?
There's two really. There's one. It's called Alexander Farms, and it just so happens that it's like A2 yogurt, which just means that it's supposed to be a little bit easy for people to digest.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's Alexander Farms. You can get it at the Sprouts. And then there's Nancy's, which they make a whole bunch of like fermented foods. But Nancy's, and it's just like the little tiny, like green and yellow. It's green. Maybe that's why. But like green and yellow container. It just says 100% grass-fed.
Hunter, one food, one meal for the rest of your life.
With or without my situation?
With your current.
If it's a meal, so we don't. One other thing I didn't say earlier is we don't make these really at all anymore.
Right.
So we know what we're eating. So my meal
Same
would
way.
probably be what we eat every single Sunday: is barbecue chicken,
Ooh.
green beans.
Yep. I've had the
That's
pleasure
pretty
of eating
good.
that meal, and it's really good. Really good.
Today.
Guys, thank you so much for your time, your insight, your personal stories, your time at the gym. I appreciate it, and we'll see you on another episode and Around the Gym.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, fam.
See ya.
Thank you for joining us today, friends. We hope you enjoyed this conversation and gained a greater understanding of the mission and vision of the CSNF community. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram under Coming Strength and Fitness, or hit us up on comingstrengthandfitness.com. See you next time.